So I just want to welcome everybody again to our Learning Chinese Culture in America guest speaker series. This topic today is on discovering the hidden histories of San Jose, Japantown. We want to especially welcome all of you here today. My name is Rosie. I'm part of Avenidas, and I do want to give a quick information background about what Avenidas is, especially during shelter in place. So Avenidas is we service seniors over 50, and we offer a lot of great programming. We do currently online classes, seminars, and events, both held in English and in Chinese. We are doing delivery services for our members, both grocery and medication. We are reaching out to our seniors as well, making phone calls and things like that. We are also doing door-to-door programming, making sure that they're doing well. And we also have a program called Avenidas Village. On top of that, we also provide a lot of different support systems and support programming, such as caregiver support, elderly care consultations, crisis intervention, emotional support. We also have information and assistance on case management, low-income housing, and other benefits regarding to the county. We have a center called Avenidas Rose Kleiner that promotes health services and activities in both English and in Spanish. We have programming under the LGBTQ community, and we also provide volunteering opportunities. That was a really very quick recap of what we do. I encourage you to visit us on our website, avenidas.org. We have a lot of great information there. You're welcome to give us a call or email us. We have our staff working from home ready to assist you or your family members if they are over 50 years old in the Bay Area or beyond. So with that being said, I do want to now hand it over to our guest speakers this morning. First, we have Erwin Wong, who is a director of the CHCP, Chinese Historical and Cultural Project. And then we also have Brenda Wong, who will be speaking next. She's also the director in CHCP. So let's silently give a warm welcome to Erwin. Erwin,
oh, thank you, Rosie. Thank you. You know, a lot of people want to know what's CHCP, and that's the Chinese Historical and Cultural Project, which is based in Santa Clara County, California. It was founded in 1987 by the late Lillian Gong Guy and Jerry Wong as a nonprofit organization to promote and preserve American Chinese and Chinese historical history and cultural through community outreach activities. The leadership of the organization is comprised of volunteers, officers, board of directors, and advisory board. A board of trustees oversees the major maintenance of the Chinese American Historical Museum, aka the Inshenggang Museum, with the city of San Jose and History San Jose. CHCP first major project was to reconstruct the Inshenggang, a religious and community center originally built in 1888 in San Jose Highlandville settlement, the last Chinatown of San Jose. In 1991, CHCP donated the Inshenggang Museum to the city of San Jose, making it available to the community at History Park, located in Kelly Park, San Jose. The museum building lower floor serves as a Chinese museum telling the stories of the early Chinese pioneers in Santa Clara Valley. The second floor showcased the original 1888 gilded altar and the five gods. The short documentary movies of the last Chinatown in San Jose home base, a Chinatown called Highlandville, was directed by Jessica Yu, an Oscar Award winner, and can be viewed upstairs at the Inshenggang Museum. Now, what is the mission and program for CHCP? Is to promote, educate, and preserve Chinese and Chinese American history and culture in the Santa Clara County. Now, let's talk about the volunteers. Just looking at the volunteers for the Chinese Historical CHCP, and especially to the museum. I'm going to just read off some of the things that we do. Advisory board member, you can be part of that. Board of directors, Chinese American Historical Museum tours, community outreach, docent for museum. Now that is great for the kids, especially when they put their applications for, their colleges. Educational program, fundraising, development, grant writing, membership, and to scholarship. We actually provide scholarships to students each year. So this is something that I highly recommend, that volunteering helps us to spread the word around, and also it's a learning experience for many of the students who come in that want to know a lot about what is the Chinese history. And we have a lot of senior members who are more than happy to come and share many of the experience and knowledge of the Chinese history, not only just in America, but worldwide. So the other thing that we've been working on is we're talking about membership. The membership that we have includes a lot of benefits. The one that I really like, and I signed up for it myself, and that was the Petron Family Duel, and that's it's allow you to go to various museums. With the pandemic, it's a little delay, but two of the ones that I've actually paid for without knowing about this membership, and that's Disney Museum and the Asian Museum. And I remember paying for those membership, even though it's deductible, tax deductible, guys. So I really enjoy going to those museums. And there's with that, they have a thing called Rome that allow you to have over 50 museums to go throughout the United States, through California, 150 throughout the United States. So this is something that I really enjoy. Now, another thing that I've been doing, and being a director of the speaker series, we actually had 2 webinars so far. The one that I think a lot of people is there, scroll to the Rosie. Do you have this? It's not done. The next slide. Yes. Okay. The East Meets West Chinatown nightclub. We had Calvin Fung, keynote speaker, Kobe Young Yi, and Cynthia Yi. Kobe is 93 years old, and she's still, provide us with a lot of information about the history of Chinatown in San Francisco and Oakland back in the night. They call it the Golden Age, but it started in 1920s, 30s, 40s. Because of the Chinese Exclusion Act, many of the Chinese or Asians could not perform in, other clubs or movies, So Chinatown came up with these nightclubs, and it's worth watching. And if you look down on the bottom, it says https://tinyurl.com nightclub 2020. If you go to that YouTube, you can see a lot of, you can watch the YouTube presentation and performance. It's amazing. I really enjoy that show. Just seeing everything about, wow, I didn't know we actually had a Chinese Fred Astaire, or a Chinese Ginger Roger, or a Chinese Frank Sinatra singing. It's really worth watching, and I really enjoy that. Another one that we had is this. Actually, hopefully, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, I bought this DVD. It's a 5-hour series about the Chinese from back in the 1850s all the way to present. And it talks a lot about the Asian. We're talking about the Japanese, the Chinese, the Filipino, and what we went through, especially through the Chinese Exclusion Act, that, the Chinese railroad workers, on. It's just amazing story. It's something that, you know, I bought it because I want my kids to and friends to watch this and say, hey, this is what we did, you know, what we accomplished, what's been happening, you know, from the 1880s. And I think about, you know, what my father and my grandfather went through back in the 1900s, you know, when they first moved, when they came to America. So really worth watching. And you can download it through the PBS. You know, you see right here, PBS. You know, the PBS can actually, you know, if you download through, you know, your application or, you know, your app on your phone, your pad, you know, or even better, download from your TV set. You get an Apple TV or Fire Stick, you know, you can download that and look for this picture. And it's a 5-hour series. Really enjoy it. And finally, the last thing is the thing I like to talk about is the you know, this upcoming webinar, and that's August 29th. Put it on your calendar, and we're going to have we're going to celebrate many of our World War II Chinese American GIs. It's going to be exciting. We expect over 1,000 people to come to the webinar, and that's how big it's going to be. It's celebrating something that to honor our veterans of World War II. And we, because of the Chinese Exclusion Act, right in the middle of 1944, the Chinese Exclusion Act was finally lifted. But still, you know, we were, you know, we're trying to acknowledge what they've done for the for the America, and what Chinese represent, and how we actually you know, given our lives and life, you know, for America, for what it is today. So we have, you know, a lot of the things that I mentioned, even talk about the upcoming webinar, but I don't want to fill too many of the information as we, you know, move on through this series. But anyway, we have somebody that is our next speaker, and I'm really excited and happy to introduce her. Her name is Brenda Wong. She was past president and current director, a superwoman, you know, and take it away, Brenda.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I'm sorry I'm not able to greet you personally today in person at the History Park. I'd like to thank Avenidas for inviting CHCP, Erwin and I, to be with you and to have you learn about the San Jose Chinatowns and the Chinese story in Silicon Valley. Next. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19 and a very limited amount of time today, our tour of the CAHM, which is the Chinese American Historical Museum, is being brought to you by Zoom in a very condensed version. You would come to see us at History Park, which is inside Kelly Park in San Jose at 635 Phelan Avenue. And we're open the first and third Sundays of every month on a regular conditions. This is our emails, info@chcp.org, if you'd like to schedule a tour. And also, if having a Chinese speaking docent is preferred, please email us to confirm that one will be on duty. Our website, chcp.org, has lots of great historic and current events and news related to Chinese and Chinese American history and culture. Okay, so let's start our virtual tour visit to the History Park to see CAHM, C-A-H-M, the Chinese American Historical Museum in the 1888 Wong building. So here you see Main Street of the History Park and a trolley, which you'll have much fun riding, which takes you around the park. The building to your right is called the Pacific Hotel, and we sit on the corner directly across from it. The History Park sits on 14 acres. It has 28 structures, and it was opened in the 1970s. It is owned and managed by the city of San Jose. Next. As you walk into the Next, thank you. As you walk into the main street, you'll see on your left the side of our building, and this is our heritage wall. So it was one of our fundraising efforts for us during our 4 years to raise over $800,000. As you see, we are a two-story structure, and we have air conditioning and an elevator. So you can come any day of the year, and you'll be able to enjoy, have fun, learn, and be in comfort. So before I leave this slide, when we talk about Chinese culture, do you notice two things of cultural element? Who said foo dogs? Or who said the yin-yang pattern of the brickwork on the ground? Okay. All right, so this, thank you. Now you see the yin-yang pattern. All right, next. This is a placard which is in front of our museum, and it is in English and in Chinese. So if you miss us on the first and third Sunday, this explains a little bit of the inside exhibits. Also, when you come into the museum, if you prefer to have our small brochure in Chinese, please ask for it. Next, this is an archival photo of the 1888 Gung. So please notice the decorations on the side of the building, the signage, the placards, the way that they're painted. And also in the front, you see that there's a big celebration happening. So this is the holiday that they're celebrating called Dajiu. It's Feast of the Hungry Ghost, which is celebrated on the 15th day of the 7th month on a lunar calendar. It's like an All Souls Day or Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And so to keep the spirits amused, there are street operas, entertainment, food offerings in the temple, and of course, parades. Next, we have the current CHM in the 1888 replica building. So how did we do? Does the photo look exactly like the archival photo you just saw? So I think we did our great job, even to the decorations on the side of the building. And the coloring, we painted exactly the same as in 1888. I'd like you to see notice at the bottom right-hand corner, it looks like a little tower on the ground. So when people came to pray in the temple, they would often burn offerings for the gods or for their deceased. So that's a very safe receptacle for burning of objects. Next slide, you see us having our front doors open to you, and of course our colorful red good luck doors. Above it, we see two characters called the Way, or the Temple Way. People would come to the Gung for 4 reasons. So the first would be to pray. Secondly, for education. So the Chinese of San Jose wanted their children to learn to read and speak Chinese. And so that was very important. Another reason would be for community gatherings. So they would come together for town hall meetings or for celebrations. And lastly, to show the hospitality, brotherhood, and community of the Chinese, they would open the first floor of the Gung as a hostel. And so the visitors then could stay overnight if they came to a function that ended way late into the afternoon or into the evening. Because sadly, at the time of the 1850s through even the 1950s, the Chinese suffered discrimination legally as well as through verbal, mental, and physical abuse. So the brotherhood and the fact that they were trying to provide a safe shelter showed the community spirit. The next slide shows you Gung in characters, reading from right to left. So in translation, it's a temple of the 5 gods. And there is the 1888 archival photo. Next, as you enter the building, to your right, you'll see a Chinese steamer trunk. And this would be similar to what the newcomers to America would carry: a Chinese dictionary, a light blanket, clothing, and some small toiletries. Continuing inside the museum, you'll see the Market Street Chinatown case. So this shows Market Street, which is the first and third Chinatowns of the 5 Chinatowns of San Jose. Currently, if you went to the Fairmont Hotel in downtown San Jose, you'd see a placard that reminds others that this is the site of the first Chinatown. Sadly, after the first Chinatown, each Chinatown suffered, were victims of arson. And so that was the cause why there were so many Chinatowns. So from the first arson at the Market Street, they moved to Vine Street for 2 years and then returned back to Market Street as the third Chinatown. San Jose, because it had quite a few Chinese, was nicknamed Dai Saifao, which is the fourth town. And today, many people refer to San Francisco as Daifao, which is, in translation, the large town. If you come to visit us with your smartphone, and stop at this placard, which you see on the left corner at the bottom, there, if using your QR code application, you'll be able to open to 5 of those objects, which are pictured in the case, but you'll be able to see 5 different descriptions, which also includes oral interview about the object. Next slide shows you the Woolen Mills Chinatown. So Woolen Mills was thriving from 1887 to 1902 for 15 years. Again, remembering that Woolen Mills emerged along with Highlandville because of the fire in March of 1887 at the third Chinatown called Market Street. So many people came to this location because there was a wool mill and a cannery, which offered many opportunities for employment. You see in the case Wells Fargo merchant records as well as Sanborn maps that help us know the history. Moving into the far end of the first floor, you see the Highlandville Chinatown. So this was also called Sandosei Tongyanfao, as well as 6th Street Chinatown. So Highlandville sat on 5.5 acres between the 6th and 7th Street and Jackson and Taylor Streets. And it was a very thriving community from 1887 to 1931, which is 44 years. The Unsingung was not torn down until 1949. So that's almost 5 decades of contribution to the community of San Jose, the Chinese community. We named this Chinatown Highlandville after our friend, the German immigrant, John Heinlein. He and his children were very good friends to the Chinese. John Heinlein owned much property in Central Valley, and so they met many Chinese in the agricultural setting. And he also owned quite a bit of property in San Jose. His children helped manage and run the businesses and the properties. And so they made many good friendships with the Chinese. His son, Goethe, was a lawyer. And at that time, Chinese were not allowed to appear in court. And so Goethe represented the Chinese in many legal matters and had quite a struggle to be represented in court with his father to obtain permits to build the new community for the Chinese in San Jose. So we're very thankful and honor the Heinlein family continuously. The next slide shows education, which I had mentioned that Chinese residents wanted to continue their heritage and culture for their children. So you see a primer, some writing instruments, a dictionary, a writing exercise book. And of course, next slide shows, the next few slides will show ways that Chinese enjoy themselves at times of celebration, at times of holiday, because the Chinese work so hard trying to earn money to send back to China. And of course, the pay was not very good. So this will help you appreciate the upstairs when you see our wow factor of the museum. But here we talk about a 1930s lion head. So lion dancing, the appearance of lions at celebrations is very important. This lion head was made of paper mache and bamboo. It was made in Fatsan in Guangdong province. So next time you come to the museum, you'll be able to see the head rotating 360 degrees. You will also be able to see, hear, and read about lion dancing through our touchpad devices. The next case shows how Cantonese opera was so popular for Chinese entertainment. you see a opera costume worn by an actor from the late 1800s to the 1920s. The costume features dragon and phoenix and peonies detail and is very heavy because of the fine embroidery work. Okay, the next slide shows you what many women today like to do when we like to go out and we dress up. And so here we have examples of Chinese finery garments, how beautifully decorated they are with embroidery, and the coloring is just, and the pattern is so beautiful. The floral patterns are of peony and cherry blossoms, and also in the skirt, the red panel shows many symbols of longevity. The photo you see is of Mrs. Sam Shu from Woolen Mills, Chinatown, and again gives an example of attire for females in that time of history. All right, now you're coming up to the second floor, which is our ooh and ah section of the museum. So see how beautifully this image glistens, and this is because of its 24 karat gold leafing, and we have not touched it up at all. This is our wow factor, which I hope you're saying ooh as you see it on your screens. So this is called Ship of Life, and does it look like a front of a ship to you? It is many scenes of activity for enjoyment. So on the very bottom level, look for the small image on the left and holding hands with a taller image. And so that might be like a little toddler going for an enjoyable Sunday walk with his grandpa. Next to them are people playing Chinese chess or Chinese Go, as seated together around a table. And then you'll see people having tea, drinking tea under perhaps a cherry blossom tree. In the second level, it shows people going to performances. So perhaps they might be going to a Chinese concert performed with Chinese traditional instruments, or they might be going to see a lion dance show. And up at the top, it shows a depiction of opera, so Cantonese opera, and perhaps people would enjoy going to the opera house or being invited perhaps to a special viewing of Cantonese at perhaps a government home. Okay, next slide. We have the entryway to our altar area, and you see the beautifully adorned and gilded 24 karat gold entryway. So notice the many decorations that were highly carved. And again, it'll glisten to you just as it did in 1888. So again, the Ungsingung was built in 1888. And so this adornment goes back for 130 years of history. The Chinese at the time pulled all their money together, and the quality to last 130 years, and the beautiful imagery and the styling. They wanted something to share for generations to come. They wanted to have a sense of pride, a place of beauty, of hope, of peace, to reunite with their family spiritually, and to ask for petitions of the gods, both for their family as well as for themselves in America. So these were all requested from Guangdong, China, and by 1892, the temple was adorned as they had hoped. The placards that you see at the back of the exhibit area on vertical panels, those are quotations showing honor and respect to the spirits and the gods that are located there in the altar area. The next slide shows you the first of the three altars. This altar is made of teak wood, and the incense holders are of cobalt blue pottery. The second altar is hidden, but look for the pewter altar vessels, which hold the silk flowers as well as the candles. The gilded altar in the front depicts scenes and figures from Cantonese opera. The next slide shows you on the right side the oxhide drum with the iron bell below it. And so those two objects were struck to call attention to the gods of the petitions of the worshipers. The side placards above the oxhide drum were sent from Guangdong, China to give well wishes to those in America. The etched chandeliers or our glass structures. Perhaps somebody could find the character for the number 5. So one of the last pages says Xinggong. Also on the side, right side of this slide, notice anybody the character for Seonghei, the double happiness character, as well as bats at the bottom of the Seonghei character. Bats symbolize longevity. And if you came, you'd probably notice a little better some fruit. And many pomegranates were carved. And pomegranates are a symbol from Buddhism of unity and fertility. And many flowers shown, such as plum for strength, courage, and hope, and for peony, which symbolizes prosperity and romance. The next slide shows our parade staffs featuring the 8 Immortals. And the 8 Immortals are a very popular art motif. The 8 Immortals are 8 figures. 6 are male and 2 are female. 4 are patrons of careers such as barbers, actors, musicians, and gardeners. And 4 have supernatural powers such as being revived from the dead, magician, leaving the spirit leaving the physical body, and immortality. And above the bronze staffs, which are used in parades, is another placard, again from Guangdong, China, for their beloved family and friends in America. And on the far left, I wanted you to notice the lines and the rows in red. And this perhaps comes from a family association in China. And if you came, you'd see the Chinese character for the surname Ing. So if you spell your name E-N-G or N-G, that might be one of your long lost relatives from China. All right, so here we see the slides of the 4 gods. So the temple of the 5 gods, Xinggong. This is the left view of the 5 gods. So the gods they chose to house in the temple were, the very far left, Choi Sun, god of wealth. Guan Gung, god of justice, loyalty, and brotherhood. Guan Yin from Buddhism, the goddess of mercy, or Gunyam. And then next to her, we see Tin Ho, which is the queen of heaven, or the protectress of those traveling on the oceans. The next slide shows the right view. So you see Guan Gung, Guan Yin or Gunyam, Tin Ho, and the very far right is Guangdong Dosing Wong, which is the patron of Canton, China. The next slide shows you a nice, very detailed close-up of the carving. And as you see, the pictures of flowers and birds. Taoism features the appreciation and respect to nature. So that's why many symbolism of outdoor birds and flowers and natural setting. Next slide shows the highly recognizable dragons. And the 2 dragons are surrounding the Pearl of Immortality. And again, gives you a nice view of the screen that sits atop the 3rd altar within our exhibit of the altar area. Just beautiful. And it glistens. Just imagine, it's 130 years old, this piece, and it's just beautifully as it was in 1888. Okay, the next slide shows for us cycles of life. And almost every visitor of Chinese heritage can highly associate with this case because it has 3 milestones of a person's life. So the first is when they were born as coming into celebration at a red egg and ginger party. The middle shows the milestone of wedding. And everybody loves those red envelopes that you see in the center because for the bride and groom, that might hold pieces of jewelry and money. And then the very far to the right shows the milestone of death. And many of the ceremonial paper objects that are burned for wealth in the next world for their deceased, passageway to the next world, light for the new world, sweet symbolism of sweetness in the next world, and perhaps even a ticket or a passport to the new world, to the next world. Next, and the last slide that we have for the second floor is our tribute to the Chinese American veterans. Here we have the honoring of Lao Sing-He, our hero of World War I. So he grew up in the San Jose, Saratoga area before moving to New York when he joined the Army. So he was a hero from World War I, and you can see his recognition in the medals that are on the bottom left corner. He was stationed in Argonne, France. And so from the French government, because of his valor and courage and being injured in action, the Croix de Guerre, which is the green symbol, the medal, was presented to the family from France. The center and right medals are from America, and those are the Distinguished Service Cross and the Purple Heart. You see him celebrating, everyone celebrating his welcome home in a parade that they had in San Jose with his mom and dad on his left and right. We also, in this case, honor our Chinese American veterans of World War II, which is also in the bottom half of the exhibit. Okay, so now we're moving from the second floor to the first floor, and we have 2 more slides for my presentation. So this slide shows you our digital timeline. And you can see when you came in the doorway, we started in 1850, telling you the story of the Chinese. The top level indicates what's happening for the Chinese in China. The middle level, what's happening for the Chinese in the United States. And the bottom level, what's happening for the Chinese in Silicon Valley, San Jose. And we were running out of space on the wall. So 3 years ago, we installed this beautiful digital exhibit. And so this is very popular for our visitors because they love to swipe up and down, left and right, to learn and find out what's happening for prominent people as well as events and happening within history. And lastly, for my presentation, this screen honors in the more contemporary contributions of the Chinese and Chinese Americans. So Chinese had a great contribution to the area in agriculture. Their orchards growing prunes, cherries, and apricots were appreciated by many. And their farms, we know that they grew many vegetable gardens, but did anybody know that they started with growing mushrooms? The floral industry was also a highly successful and loved industry by the community. They were successful with growing aster, chrysanthemum, and roses. In the retail area, we were very successful in establishing grocery stores, laundries, and meat markets. And of course, we had a big contribution of time, talents, and treasure in the technology sector. Many outstanding scientists and engineers in Silicon Valley. And of course, lastly, land development. I'm sure everyone who's tuning in today has gone to the Asian malls because we love to eat, and so many great restaurants and great markets to shop at. So we thank you for this attending this quick condensed version of our the contents of our museum. So we thank you and we hope to see you. Come learn about more at chcp.org, and you'll learn about history, and you can also see a slideshow of what I have shown in a condensed version, as well as go on a virtual tour, chcp.org. Thank you. Now the next 6 slides that Rosie's going to show you is how you can help appreciate one of the Chinatowns of San Jose. And that last Chinatown would be Hainanville. So Rosie will show you 6 different slides because we are having a writing campaign. This writing campaign is to urge the city council members of San Jose to name the new public park on the site, which is the exact location of Highlandville Chinatown. This development will have residential, commercial, and retail businesses, as well as a park, public park. And this is the time when we can send in what we would like the council to name the park. So the first slide that Rosie is showing to you is the flyer, which we will have on our chcp.org. This flyer is in English, and the flyer talks to you about why we're having this campaign, and on the blue, who to write to, and in the red on the right, the deadlines that you need to watch to get that letter in, and if you're mailing it by U.S. Postal Service, the address to write to. So also, you can go on to chcp.org for more letter writing information, and of course to learn more about history. So the next slide shows you the same flyer translated in Chinese. If that is easier for you to get inspired to participate in the letter writing campaign, it is a direct translation in Chinese. There it is. Okay, and there's the 1888 archival photo of the Ngsengung. So that is also can be found on the website. And then the next slide, I want to have you know that when you type and visit our website, chcp.org, if you go to the tab which says News, which is at the top of the slide, Rosie, can you show the top of the slide? There are many tabs, and find the tab called News. Click on it, and you see to the right the caption upcoming events. So look for naming, see where it says July 24, it says naming campaign. You click on that and immediately this page will show up. It reminds us of the naming campaign for the San Jose Japantown Park. And it says through September 1, because that is the final deadline. That is the night, everyone, that City Council will meet and will discuss and have a vote on the naming of the new park. So please get your letters in now as soon as possible, and it will be shown online. Those gathered before August 14 will be shown online by August 21. Now I want to show this slide also because, Rosie, please move to the bottom of this page, this same web page. At the bottom, you will see two black lines. The first black line talks to you about, says for further information about Highlandville. If you click that link, you will see a page that talks to you and explains more about Highlandville. And also the second line, which says for sample letters in English, you click the word templates, and that will show you sample letters that you can pick information from if you need some help with letter writing content. So the next slide Rosie will show is that Highlandville webpage that talks to you about Highlandville, again, the last Chinatown of San Jose, number 5. And then after that slide, the Highlandville page, Rosie will show you the writing templates. So we have 4 examples of what you may read from and select bits of information from for in English, for writing templates in English. And we also have one in Chinese. So Rosie's going to show those 2. Again, those are sample letters. If you'd like to, we hope that everyone will tell their family and their friends to write into the San Jose City Council. There is no age and no residence requirement. So if you're having a hard time today, Rosie, that's okay. Everybody click on to chcp.org. Here we are. Okay, so we're showing you the sample templates, what it might look like for your own letter in English. And again, pick and choose bits of information to encourage that meaningful naming of the Highlandville Park for this new park in Japantown. Again, Highlandville Park. Highlandville then does a great honoring to John Highland and his family, who risked a lot of ostracization, a lot of abuse from the fellow residents of San Jose when they started with the Chinese to offer shelter and building the new Chinese community. Also, naming of Highlandville Park gives a recognition to Highlandville, Chinatown, and the contribution of the Asian community at that site. First the Chinese and the Japanese were in the area, and then the Filipinos. So in the last slide, we wanted to show you something in Chinese because I know there are many non-American born Chinese. And so if you want to know more and you feel passionate to join our campaign to nominate Highlandville Park, here's a few reasons in Chinese why it's a good idea to convince the San Jose City Council. All right. So everyone, thank you so much. Thanks for listening and for your attention. And thank you, Avenidas, for having Erwin and I.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And then thank you also, Erwin, for just sharing with us more about Highlandville, the 5 Chinatowns, just everything that was shared today. So I really appreciate it. I will say that this time, I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any Q&A, but I will go ahead and stop the recording as well. So let me just go ahead and stop that.